Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be introducing comparing characters, setting, and events. And throughout the week, we'll be working on these skills. We're going to start by comparing characters. So, characters are people, animals, or creatures in a story or a play. Good readers pay attention to details in a story and notice the traits of characters. So, how do we compare characters? We can make inferences about characters through their words, their thoughts, and their actions. We think to ourselves, what does the character say? What are his or her thoughts? What actions does the character take? What kind of person would think and do that? Identify the traits that make that character them. How are these traits similar and different from other characters in the story? And how do characters interact with each other? So good readers are thinking this as they're reading their story. They're thinking these questions kind of inside as they're reading. They're thinking and reading. We're going to read a short excerpt, and the excerpt is just a short piece taken from a text. And you've probably all heard the story of Cinderella. And she meets her Prince Charming, and they live happily ever after. So this is an excerpt from Cinderella. Cinderella sighed and sighed. I wish I might go to the ball, too, and see that handsome prince and all the lovely ladies, she said. Go score your pots and pans, cried the stepmother. That is all you are fit for, you cinder witch. So Cinderella went back to her work, but as she scrubbed and rubbed, the tears ran down her cheeks so fast she could hardly see. In this piece of text here, we could identify a couple of different characters. We could look and say, what were their thoughts, their actions? What kind of character comes out in each one of them? Could we describe them just based off these just few sentences? What traits do they have? And as you might have to go back and you might have to read it again. So take a second, reread that section one more time. What does Cinderella say, think, and do? So within the text, what does she say, think, and do? Cinderella says that she would like to go to the ball. We see that because she sighed and sighed, and she wished I might go to the ball, and she actually said that. So that is what she say, think, and do. And let's just bullet. I wish I might go to the ball. And she cried. And that tells you about her character. She rubbed the pots and tears ran down her cheeks. So that's something else that she is doing. She says, thinks, and do. That's going to help build up the plot of the story. Tears ran down her cheeks. Now, what does this tell you about Cinderella? Well, it tells us that she wants to go to the ball. It also tells us because the tears, she wished she went to the ball, and then she knew she wasn't going to get to the ball, and she was crying. So how maybe disappointed she was. So tells us that Cinderella is disappointed. And y'all could even say sad, but I try to find a different word besides sad. Let's try to find another word that could describe her. So she was disappointed and sad. She couldn't go to the ball. Now we have another character. What does the stepmother say and do? So let's think about what she says. Well, yes, you're right. She tells Cinderella to go and scour your pots. Go wash the pots. And and that's what she says. What does she think? Well, if you base it off this word right here, cinder wrench, wrench is another rude kind of word for a servant. We don't use that word nowadays. And she's actually being disrespectful. In her comment, she's telling her, you're not going to the ball, you're going to go wash the pots and pans. In other words, you are a servant and you belong in the kitchen. And that means wench is another word for a servant. So what does the stepmother say, think, and do? She treats Cinderella as a servant. And that's what she is doing. And that means she does not care for her. So what did that tell you about the stepmother? That tells us a lot. I should have said the stepmother for detail. She doesn't like Cinderella. Let's say unkindly or with disrespect and maybe a verbal abuse. How do Cinderella and her stepmother interact? That last question, how do they interact? Well, Cinderella gets treated more as a servant, and the stepmother is pretty much rules the home. So we're going to you could come up with a lot of different things as long as you can support it from the text. Remember that. These answers could be just a hair different if you can support it through the text. So I'm going to say, how do they interact? Well, we already know they don't get along. We already know that they don't get along just by Cinderella's stepmother telling her to go wash the pots and pans. She's not letting Cinderella be a child or be a young woman. She's treating her as a servant. So the stepmother rules the house and Cinderella acts as a servant. And she only acts that way because of the stepmother's behavior and the way the stepmother is treating her. And we already know she cries, so she does want a different life. She's just in this situation that's causing her a traumatic experience here, living with this very mean stepmother. And that is comparing characters.